Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Well, good. There's a headline. It comes out of the New York Times, you know, your favorite newspaper
Paper
there.
of record.
That you get delivered to your doorstep every morning.
Absolutely.
To make sure you subsidize them to keep in business. Nevertheless, once in a while they get some propaganda into their papers and maybe some bits and pieces of information that we do pay attention to and try to interpret what they're trying to say to it. Well, anyway, the headline says a whole lot, which caught our attention. It says, Britain says it killed 3 ISIS suspects in the first drone strike in Syria. Now, why should this, earn a big headline on this? I guess policies are being changed or something. I imagine this could be very significant.
It should be, and there are a couple of very interesting points. First of all, 2 of the people they killed or assassinated were British citizens. So they killed their own people, and they were, quote, suspected of being members of ISIS. So there's no due process. But the other thing that you're alluding to is it was just 2 years ago that the British Parliament voted against bombing Syria. So how is it that they bombed them when the Parliament said you're not allowed to?
Well, I remember that very well, the 2 years ago, because Obama was trying to get something passed in the Congress, and we and others participated in galvanizing the people against it. The people were against it, and Congress got the message. So Congress will reflect the people's attitude, and Obama at least didn't have the vote, but he went to war anyway, and this is the same thing. This sort of confirms what I try to express, and that is the people don't like war, but we end up in war because the governments get in charge, and they either try to propagandize and change the people's mind, which they're pretty good at, or they just go ahead and do it anyway. And then after he gets desperate, then they'll say, well, we have troops in the field, we need some money.
Yeah.
So it's on and on. But this to me looks like, not only the deceitfulness on the British people, and evidently there's some dissension with the people in Britain right now, in their congressional or their presidential, for their prime minister right now. There's a dissension, and there's an anti-war candidate in that race.
Yeah, the Labour Party is picking their next leader, and Jeremy Corbyn, who's explicitly anti-war, at least as far as I can tell, pretty genuinely anti-war. And this may inadvertently give him a big boost because, as you say, the people have not been in favor of this. And one thing I can point out that you said, how is it that they do this? Well, they just change words around. Here's what the New York Times says. Britain is not taking part in military action in Syria because lawmakers rejected that idea.
Yeah.
So, white is black and up is down.
It sounds like Newspeak or something like that. A lot of double talk on there. But the whole idea of the drone war and sanctions, we have some anti-war people in Congress that I work with that would never vote for war, but they're always for a lot of foreign aid, and they're for sanctions, and even might go along with a targeted drone attack because it's a little more sterile. It's not all war. But I think this causes every bit as much trouble. In some ways, it might even be more because it's like a sneak attack. They come in and people get killed, and a lot of people, innocent people, get killed. And of course, we don't know whether these individuals were guilty or not. But the number of drones attacks have not gone down under this president. Matter of fact, there's been a good bit of destruction by these drones.
Well, just in this past year, actually up until August 15th, I was looking before we started the show, the U.S. has conducted 2,346 airstrikes on Syrian territory.
Are they on the verge of victory pretty soon?
It seems like they should be, but ISIS took over the last major oil field in Syria over the weekend. So they seem to be on the march. The more we bomb, the stronger they get.
Well, maybe there's a little bit to that program we did on showing that some of our commanders actually, and our policies are actually designed in certain circumstances to support ISIS.
Well, they're certainly terrified of Assad winning. Assad is the only anti-ISIS force on the ground fighting aside from the Kurds who the Turks are bombing. But you know, they don't want Assad to win, but they don't want Assad's adversaries to win. They have, now that they've gotten into this mess, they have no way out.
Well, you know, there was a suggestion made the other day, and we've alluded to this. They said, well, if we're really trying to get rid of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the radical jihadists, there are some people out there that would like to. Russia probably would like to do that. Assad would like to do that. The Iranians would like to do that. So if you had all those, you know, we could just back off, save our money, you know, and I imagine they could take care of that. But that is never considered, is it? It's just one of those things that is so contradictory. So you really have to search for the motivation. If they don't want to get rid of ISIS, are they really propping them up? And how does ISIS get away with managing oil fields under these conditions if they're in trouble and we're constantly bombing them?
Either our military is a lot weaker than they claim, or they're doing something wrong. But you know, as you say, not only would other people be very glad to try to take out ISIS without us, it probably would be more effective. But look, we were just talking before the show how both Bulgaria and Greece have been pressured by the U.S. government to not allow Russian humanitarian aid flights to fly over their territory. So
yeah. No, and it's constant, and then you figure out why. Why wouldn't Bulgaria have a natural tendency to want to get along with Russia? History shows that they weren't always fighting Russians, and right now there are economic benefits for the two countries to work together. But then there's government involved again, not only our government, but international government. You know, NATO and United Nations, especially NATO, is always trying to make these decisions. So we take a country like Bulgaria, who geographically is literally in the middle of things, and we threaten and intimidate and probably send money, and they say, you do it our way or out you go. Yeah. And then, of course, then they have to turn on Russia, which they probably aren't, their heart probably isn't even in that, and yet that again is more escalation, if nothing else, just as these drone attacks. This is escalation, the way I see it.
Well, the U.S. does not want Russia to bring humanitarian aid because they view that as helping Assad, backing up Assad. So they're going to deny humanitarian aid, food and water and what have you, to the Syrian people to punish Assad. But we're in the middle of a huge refugee migrant crisis. Does anyone think that forbidding these people from getting food and water is not going to make thousands more of them move on the road toward Hungary and Germany?
And some of those refugees are still coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan, mostly out of Syria. But remember Madeleine Albright's comment about, well, you know, this bombing and killing, that was in the 90s before we really went to war, that she was asked about the 500,000 children that died from us destroying their water plants and denying drugs, and kids died. And she was blasé about it. She said, well, that's the price you have to pay. So they have these goals, which are absolutely bizarre, has nothing to do with the interest of an American citizen. It has everything to do with having conditions that actually destroys our liberties at home and undermines our financial system. And they do it with a straight face. And then the architects of these things, which we constantly talk about, they're the ones who are getting advice. And here we have Cheney coming back writing books about what should be done. This guy should have been discredited so long ago. I don't even know if history will discredit him the way things are going now. But this hope that the American people sort of wake up from this.
He should have been in prison, probably. But here's how shameless British Prime Minister David Cameron is. Listen to what he said. We took this action, i.e. the droning of British citizens, we took this action because there's no alternative. In this area, there's no government we can work with in Syria. Why is that? Yeah.
And his excuse is killing these two guys, British citizens. This is self-defense. Now, let's say they were shady characters and maybe talked to somebody they shouldn't have been talking to. Well, you know, in the good old days when the British had rights and Americans had rights, that wasn't an automatic. So they look at this and they feel, well, what are we going to do? Well, if they want to leave, Wouldn't they be better off if we didn't have so much invested in these wars and oil and all this? That's what's involved. But if two bad guys say, well, I don't like what the conditions are in America anymore, and I want to go over and help these radicals in there, so let them go. Wouldn't Britain, England be better off without these?
Without them there,
and if we had some of these radicals that said the same thing, let them go. But why complicate things by saying, well, yeah, they said us something bad. They might come back here, and we know about the Bush's philosophy, the Bush doctrine, preemption, suspect, don't wait till they come here. The whole world's a battleground. We'll go get them, and it's endless. So since there's potential terrorists in every single country and every single spot in the world, it's endless. This is what really scares me at the current condition, because traditionally we do know that under wartime conditions, people get lax and the governments have authority and they say you have to sacrifice and give up your liberties, which makes no sense, but people generally do that. But since people are now conditioned that this is endless, I mean, just listen to the candidates. You've got to go get ISIS, got to go get ISIS. And they never ask, why is ISIS doing so well, even with our ability to drone them, and yet they do so well. But this thing is going to end up so badly, I think. You just wonder, what is their sincere motivation, and it can't be very good.
Yeah, that's correct.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and I consider this a very important point today that we talked about, and that is the escalation in Syria, where the British have now decided to follow the Americans, assassinate British citizens because they may be bad guys, and don't make charges, forget about the rights of the British citizens and the rights of all individuals, and just go and assassinate them. But this is escalation because the British voted 2 years ago, and the people in the parliament said, we don't want to be involved in Syria. Yet they've been involved in Iraq and other countries, but no, not in Syria. So this is a significant change. This is where the government has done this, and to me it's almost an opening salvo. It isn't like somebody secretly gave us this information. This serves the purpose of conditioning the people. Before you know it, the British might forget about the vote that they have, and there'll be escalation. There will be more stories to tell about how horrible ISIS is. They won't take the consideration in the fact that the answers to ISIS is staring us in the face. Just get out of the way and let maybe the Russians and Assad and the Iranians take care of this, because they don't like ISIS either, if we sincerely wanted to get rid of ISIS. But under these conditions, with all these drone bombs going, and yet ISIS is in the oil business, there's something awfully bizarre about that. There's one simple solution: get us out of there. We don't need to be in there. We make it more complex. It's hard on us, it's hard on them, people suffer, and we don't need to practice this mercantilism that we have to protect our natural resources. We used to think for so long that we had to protect the oil. Well, right now we have a glut of oil because the market found a solution to it, and we've drilled and we found there's oil every place. Even the Egyptians now are finding oil. So the marketplace and liberty and minding our own business and national sovereignty, this is so much better route than these international bodies like NATO prodding, whether it's the Bulgarians or anybody else, are prodding a program up in Ukraine. This is absolutely disastrous. The sooner we wake up, the better it would be for our liberties here at home, and obviously the better it would be for our financial situation. The sooner the better. Now I want to thank you all for tuning in today to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.